Okay, well, welcome everybody to the channel called the Self-Alignment Channel. And here we are with Reverend Ellyn Kravette. And Ellyn, give us a little bit of your background. Tell us a little bit about you.
Well, thanks so much, Laurie. Where to begin, right? So where does your bio begin? I was thinking it's important for you to know that I am was born in the United States and that I'm a New Yorker. And in the United States, what state you're born in makes a very big difference to how you are acculturated. And one of the wonderful things about being New Yorker is the diversity of the people in the city, the diversity of the colors, the diversity of the smells, the diversity of all the different economic spectrums that make up the city. And all of it has an impact on one's curiosity or one's understanding of what they're hearing and what they're seeing are not always the same. So I was always a child who was interested in the difference between how life appeared to me and what people were telling me about living. And so being a bit of a renegade, I always had to kind of figure out things by myself and for myself. And I really suffered from childhood depression and was depressed for a great part of my life. But part of my MO, my method of operation, is anything that I have ever learned to do, I have gone back to teach other people. And that's really the way that I've moved up. So that's why I love doing podcasts like this, because this life has been an exploration for me and a learning about who I am and what my potential is. And understanding that, it's given me a great understanding of what other people are and what their full potential is and how important what they've learned in life has done to shape them and develop them. But the key to that is how to utilize that. That's the key. So it's not really what's happened to us. It's not really about the pathway. It's how to appreciate that pathway and learn from it and grow with it and to change our experience, because the potential for life is huge. I did become an addiction counselor because I had an addiction. I am an alcoholic. I am in recovery for 42 years. And being a part of 12-step programs and being an addiction counselor and hearing myself encourage other people to grow and to develop and to find their own power and not look for it outside of themselves has contributed to who I am. I also always needed to go into ministry. But the interesting thing about ministry, I mean, I started as a child when I was 5 years old, this incredible quest for God. And and when I went into ministry, the thing that ministry taught me was that we're all ministers. And so I have one incident that was so profound for me. I was performing a wedding ceremony in Port Jervis, New York, in this very, very old church, which is only used for weddings at this time. And when I would go to do a wedding, I would bring a microphone and a stand and, my robe and all of these things. And I was crossing the road with another couple and dragging my things along and set up and perform the ceremony. And then on the way back, everybody's crossing the street on the way back, and I'm crossing the street also with that couple. And the man looked at me and said, "If we knew you were the Reverend, we would have helped you." And it was at that moment that I knew exactly what my ministry was about. And my ministry was to teach everyone that they were Reverend, every one of us, and that every one of us are ministers, because whatever we do and whatever we say is the way that we minister to other people. And I also learned that ministers are not up on a pedestal. The ones that are up on a pedestal are the ones that are in trouble, because ministers don't know more than other people. We study things, we think about things because it's interesting to us and it's important to us. Uh, um, which brings me to another story of when I became an addiction counselor. And the first day that I was hired as an addiction counselor at South Oaks on Long Island, the man who hired me, he said to me, "Ellyn," he said, "the people that come here as patients, they leave here in 30 days, and you and I have a need to be here longer." And so I learned as a counselor to listen to what I was saying to people and to take my own advice and to hear what things were really about. And so that had all of those things had a lot to do with my development. The third point of this five-pointed star of who I am had to do with the first day I became an employee assistance professional, also at that same place, South Oaks on Long Island. And there was a man that I knew who was an employee assistance professional. And employee assistance professionals, they are what I call it is corporate social work. We work in companies and we help all the employees to find the resources that they need. So our expertise really comes about hearing people and then being able to be a matchmaker and find a path that will work for them. And so that first day that I was employed as an employee assistance professional, which I still am today, uh, I um, I called this man who I thought was incredibly fabulous. And I said to him, "You're the greatest employee assistance professional that I know. I want to know the secret because I want to be really great." And so he came all the way down to see me and we took a walk. And he said, "You want to know the secret?" He said, "Be yourself." And so that's the third point of my 5-point star. I've always been able to talk myself into positions because I've had a vision that I belonged places and so I then when I got those positions, needed to scramble to get the underpinning of a lot of learning that I needed to have so that I would feel like I had better resources, better ways of communicating, and better ways of diversifying how I could be helpful to people. Because it's not just about me and my journey, it's being able to hear you on your journey and to know what will work for you. We just had a situation, I was just talking to Laurie about it right now, about somebody that was suicidal. And she said, "How do you help somebody that was suicidal?" And I said, "I know that people have their own answers. I know that they know what it is that they need, and I help them to put that into place." And so, that's, I think, ministry or counseling or social work or all the things that I belong to, all these groups, really it's all the same thing. It's just different languages, different pathways to get to the true point of when you know who you are, you can do anything. So when you know truly who you are as a human being and your potential, and then begin to learn whatever has been on your path in your journey and how to utilize it, even when you thought it was awful, even when you thought it was wonderful, even when you thought it was easy, even when you thought it was difficult, when you learn how to use that, you begin to see that there is a bigger picture and that there's nothing in life that cannot be useful to you, uh, and that you can give that to what I would call the Holy Spirit. You can give that to that spirit inside of you to just say every day, show me how to be helpful. You know, when they asked the Dalai Lama, what his religion was, he said, what did he say? He said gratitude. He said gratitude. He said, to be useful, to be helpful, to be caring. And that's what we do for one another. We care about one another and we open doors for them. So my specializations have over the years become trauma, uh, downsizing, critical incidents, 12-step work, which has to do with addiction. But it's really all about personal empowerment. And that's why this is called the self-alignment station, because when you get aligned with yourself, uh, every day is a miracle, every day is an adventure, and every day is an opportunity. And so that's what we're really here to talk about today. Does that tells you who I am, yeah?
It's really good, Ellen. You know what I love about it is it's just really authentic. It's really just, you just sharing who you are and how you've come such a long ways, and that you truly do share that with everybody. So because you experienced that, you see the potential in other people, and you really are an inspiration, which is why you're doing this work and why we're having this podcast, because of the inspiration you are for other people now. And like when we talked about that you were helping somebody that was feeling suicidal, and that wasn't long before we got on the telephone today, or we got on the connected on Zoom now, and it seemed like in a few minutes you had it solved. So that's why I was asking, how did you do that? And really, there's such a nice deep answer that people have their own answers, and you're just showing them how to get there, which is beautiful. And that's really what this channel is about. And at some point, we will have people that can call in and ask you those questions so that they can receive that simple guidance to find their own answers that are already inside of each of us.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
So
Well, yeah.
it's your turn.
Yeah. I'll share a little bit about where I came from. And ultimately, this is where my work has led me to now, is really to look at how to help myself and how to help other people really discover what answers that we have inside of us. And so for me right now, I'm finding it with the equine facilitated learning, where the horses are teaching us and showing us what's already there inside of us and just guiding us. So I'll talk a little bit more about that work at the very end, but initially, well, I grew up in rural Alberta, Canada, which put me on a path of being thankfully I like to read, and I could find information and read for myself and start learning some stuff about personal development. And I remember being pretty young and being in a rural area, the consciousness level, it was probably not conducive for personal development in many ways. It was more about sticking to the norm and trying to fit in. So that was kind of the first part of my life. And then in my late teens, I already knew that I wanted to be, I wanted to improve myself. I wanted to learn more about personal development. I really was searching. And so at that point, I had met a few people. I had been to a few classes. I read a lot of stuff. And I ended up in social work school, first of all, to find healing for myself. And that's really the direction I was looking. And then it was to be able to share that with other people. So I did that for a while. I worked with women in women's shelters, and then I did the opposite, where I was working with criminology. And I shouldn't say the opposite, but it was just that there was a contrast between working with abused women and then often working with abusers or people involved in the criminal system. And so I was working as a probation officer, and I think that I that's where I found out I really like to be able to get some knowledge and be able to share that with people, to give them an option on their path, and hopefully had some influence over some people over the years with that. And so when I look at my library, right from when I was young, it was always about spirituality, personal development, and business. So I had that combination where I loved business. I loved being, my parents at that time, when I was younger, had a retail store, and I loved being able to work in the store and be with people. So from social work, I decided to open a travel agency. So I got into business at the travel agency, and I remember talking to one of my college graduates, and that we stayed friends, and he was saying to me, wow, you're giving up all your training. And I said, wow, it's amazing, because in the travel agency, people are coming in and taking time to tell me their story, and I'm seeing it from a different perspective, where they're not essentially coming to get help, but they're probably getting more out of it. And so am I, because we get to share on a deeper level because of my training, and because it was just a feeling of freedom, not any, nobody had to do anything. Nobody was coming to heal. It was more in a fun way. And I loved it. So, and it was fun for me to really experience being in business. And then from there, I ended up being able to move to Costa Rica, which was a real blessing in my life, that I got to be in this beautiful weather. That was back in 2006 that I moved here to Costa Rica, where I am now. And so I pursued business, I bought a real estate company. And so I was working in the real estate industry, and up until recently, and I'm still involved in the industry, but now I see it more as a hobby. And now I'm making more of a transition back into being able to help people and help myself, and really work on my own, just living my own authenticity, and really, just, I guess it's like having friends like Ellyn, where I get to share at a deep level, and then really be able to pass that on to other people who are interested in going to deeper levels as well. And I say deeper, and then I go in my mind, maybe that's higher levels. But, and I think that's been one of the keys for me, is to watch now where my mind goes. So we always have these conversations inside of our own minds. And this has helped me a lot, where I might have some thoughts come in, and I start going down a path that's not very nice. It's a negative path. And now I can stop myself, and I can say to myself, is that really the way that I want to live? Is that the energy that I want to have? No. Okay, then I'm turning that around. And so stopping that energy then allows me to choose to be on a more positive path. So that's been one of the keys for me for feeling better and really feeling like I can live at a higher potential. I used to have a mentor that used to say, "What's your maximum potential?" And now I mean, I loved it back then, but now I even feel like now I'm really getting into the place where I can explore what is my maximum potential and what is all of our maximum potentials, a potential. It's like now I can see that in other people as well. And certainly now with the work that I'm doing with the horses act out whatever is going on for us. And they open up a pathway somehow, energetically, they open up a pathway for us to explore more how to work through our emotions, through all of our emotions. Like a horse can get angry at another horse and they just accept it and it's over. It's done. There's not a carry on of any of that. And same with fear. They can be in fear and then they go back to grazing, that they're over it. And so just even watching them helps us to learn, but they literally will teach us when we're doing sessions. They literally will show people and people get to discover it for themselves because it comes out. And so, yeah, I mean, this is the fantastic work that I'm doing now. And I'm so happy to be able to explore with this and still continue my own about, living my own passion and helping other people to find their passions and their maximum potential. So that's what I see this about now with Ellyn and I talking is, Ellyn's theme that she really wanted for this was living at your full potential is easier than you think. And so maybe we could get into that conversation, Ellyn, about why are you saying it's easier than you think?
Well, because life is really very simple when we stop complicating it. The Course in Miracles says that everything that's not love is something that we've made up and put these barriers in place. And that's our full potential is, the truth is we're really one. Every religion starts with talking about the one, and you can't have one and something else. But from time to time, we'll throw out the names of books that we've utilized or where people can get more information on it. It reminds me of a book called The Four Agreements by Don Miguel Ruiz. And the beginning of it talks about this man who goes up to the top of the mountain and he looks at the sky and he realizes that everything is really all connected and that everything is one. Isn't that what the first commandment says? Your Lord, your God is one. Everything is one. And he comes down from the mountain to tell the people this great truth. And they just say, oh, he's so wise. Look, he's so right, of course. But then they put him up on the pedestal so they don't have to do their own work. What did Jesus Christ tell us? Do you want to know the Father? The Father's in me. The Spirit's in me. And when he says, to follow the Spirit, the Spirit's in every one of us. It's not his spirit. It's our spirit collectively, the Spirit that's in all of us. And so the thing is to not put somebody up on a pedestal, but to these incredible guides that have come in every way. So much work, so much resources are out there. So much work has been done in finding out that everything is much bigger than we ever imagined that it would be. And so learning about your full potential is getting the stuff out of the way that blocks you from thinking that you can't be fully present, can't be fully alive because of one thing or another. Also in the Four Agreements, Don Miguel Ruiz talks about the fact that when we come into the world, we come in and we're born and we're free of any kind of thoughts, any kind of smallness. We just, if you smile at a baby, they smile back at you. They're just little love bunnies, And then what we do is we begin to domesticate them, and we begin to tell them what to be afraid of and what's not good, what is good. I always love the story of Adam and Eve. It's my favorite story because Adam and Eve are running around completely naked, enjoying all the fruits of the Garden of Eden, living in harmony with all of the animals and being free, and all of a sudden the only thing that happens is they eat from the knowledge of good and evil. And it was not an apple, of course. It was probably a pomegranate or something, God knows. But the thing is, the metaphor is they eat from this thing of good and evil, and all of a sudden things start to be good, things start to be less good. All of a sudden we have these gradations, and then they find out that they're bad, that they have to go and hide. Well, what was the difference between the day before and the day they thought they had to hide? It was their judgment, the way they utilized that power, the way the churches have used it to show that men are more important than women, or first and women are second, or childbirth should be painful. I have to shrug my shoulders. We make this stuff up for what? The other day I came back from a church that I like to visit from time to time, and I was all wound up. Laurie said, let's talk about that today, but I knew it would come out one way or the other, because the conversation was about civilization and freedom. With this understanding that this country is freedom. And we call ourselves as being in the free world. But when you have civilization, it's free for who? Is it free for the women? Is it free for the for all different races and all different cultures? Is it free for the people that don't have money? Is it as free as it is for the people that do have money? So the truth is that freedom has got to be inside of us, that sense of freedom, that sense that we can break through anything, that we are part of the one. That's the freedom. The freedom is that we are part of the one. The freedom is that we have the potential, no matter what our circumstances are. Not the potential to be what somebody else is, but the potential to appreciate this moment of our life. And I'm so sorry. I'm just getting over COVIDs.
Yeah, but basically,
Excuse me.
yeah.
So claim my freedom over COVID, I work at a job, and so I had COVID this week, and my employer said to me, how can you work? Why don't you take time off? And I said, I rather do what I can do, focus on what I can do, and then not do what I can't do, because that's my philosophy of life. That's my freedom of being who I am, always being willing to move out from myself, always being willing um, to be part of a whole that does not have to be uh, limited in any way, shape, or form. And it has, because limitation has so much to do with what we think limits us.
Now, you-
And
a
may or may not have to. What?
well, you're
Sorry.
a real good example of that. And that's what I was just thinking about that a little bit earlier. You have had like an operation on your eye, you've had, dental stuff, and I never hear you complain. And I know that there have been moments where that had to be pretty uncomfortable. And yet you always come through with a different attitude. And I'm sure that's from years of knowing, of knowing yourself and knowing how to get out of that. But that you come up with things like, well, I know that my eye is going to get better, or I know that whatever it is that I'm going through is just a phase. That's okay. So let's embrace whatever it is right now. And I know it's going to get easier. Like the positive attitude that you have with it is really, well, it's inspirational, but it's like it's ingrained in you now. So you took old programming out and you put new programming in.
Yeah, and it takes practice.
Right.
It takes practice, because the more you realize what you can do, the more you realize what you can do.
Right. And I remember you telling me that a story of a fellow that was in his 70s and said, oh, I'm so old now and I'm having so many pains. And you said, that's nothing. This is not something that you succumb to. This is not, if you have to change your attitude about it, and everything will change. And I love that. You're really an inspiration for everybody.
But the key is also, like I tell people, we're like trees. And if you are a tree that stands alone and only has one root, and the wind blows, it's going to go over. So you don't have to have the answers yourself. You need to have diverse roots. You need to, when you get to a place, a couple of months ago, I was at a place where some stuff was going on in my head and I didn't know how to get rid of it. And I called up and got a counselor.
Mhm.
Because sometimes you need somebody else's input, somebody else's eyes. What's in between your head is what's in between your head. And that's why it's so important to belong to different kinds of groups of people that think in different ways. That's why we get stuck where we want everybody around us to think the way we do. Not necessary. Matter of fact, I hope nobody else thinks exactly the way I do. Sometimes, it's a curse, sometimes it's a blessing, but it's what I think. But if I don't let other people that are thinking around me think something else, it doesn't provide the juice for my engine to run. So I need that different kinds of input, different kinds of thought. I need to, that I have the answer. There was a book many, many years ago called Hinds Feet in High Places, one of my favorite books. And it was about a little deer. The whole book is a metaphor. And if you can find a nice old copy of it, please do yourself a favor. And it's about this little deer, and her name is Much Afraid. And it's about how she climbs this mountain with her handmaidens. And that's the name of the book, Hinds Feet in Hinds Places. But this whole thing was about this journey that we're on, and that you need to let other sources in to bring you different information so that you can grow and get rid of your limitations. Other people around you who see you differently.
Mhm.
Other people, you know, one of the things I discovered many years ago, what you tell people about yourself has a lot to do with the way they'll talk to you. And the way they talk to you is the way they feed yourself back to you. Like if you were to tell somebody, and try this experiment, if you go somewhere where you've never been before, and you walk into the room and you tell people you're a doctor, try it. And the way people talk to you or defer to you, very, very interesting, fascinating.
We have a friend that used to jokingly, when people asked him in his retirement, so what did you do? And he said, I was the undertaker, just to see the reaction and how people treated him. So,
Exactly.
yeah.
Yeah. So the thing is to put forth whatever you want for the reaction to be.
Mhm.
I at one time started to tell people I was a writer, but then I never wrote anything.
But you do write, you write
But
articles.
I do write, and I'm gonna write again. I'm gonna be a writer again. But in any event, being a reverend was one of the things I understood about that. And one of the reasons I like that title is that it reminds me constantly of who I am. And and because I'm a reverend, I have to live up to my expectation. I have to not take advantage of people. I have to I have to be what I want people to think a reverend is.
Right.
And it's unfortunate that all people that have that title don't get that. But the ones that do, the ones that live it out, very, very, very important, because it's a beautiful thing, because we are reverend.
Yeah, and I like what you were just saying about that we can choose. We forget that we can choose different pathways. We can be different, kind of like different people or different characters. It reminds me of the book.
Yeah, sorry, go on.
Well, it
Yeah.
reminds me of the book called Mutant Message Down Under, where a nurse actually from the US went on a walkabout with with an Aboriginal tribe in Australia. And so she was in the outback and she got to experience this tribe living really authentically. And one of the things that they did is, so a child will decide at some stage in its life what it wants to be. So it says, okay, I'm going to be a musician. So it becomes a musician. And then maybe in their 20s, then they say, you know, I'm not a musician anymore. Now I'm a healer. And so now I'm studying to be the healer for the tribe. And so then they teach him how to be a healer. And so he changes. And then at another point in life, then he feels, okay, now I'm something else. I love that, that there's just, if, and we all have that freedom, we forget that we can choose to be different characters when we're ready for that. And I love what you're saying, like with you as a reverend, if you keep that with you, even though you might have other characters, then you live up to a certain standard for yourself.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And then you get to a point I found for myself and my own journey. I have needed to be things outside before I was things inside.
Mhm.
And once they were inside, I don't care if you know I'm a reverend anymore, because I know I'm a reverend. And I know that I live according to my expectation of what I need to be.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I mean, and let's have a little bit further discussion about the programming of not feeling our freedom or coming between us and our freedom. So we come with backgrounds like, well, I was abused in my background, or I had addictive parents, or something happened. And some people get stuck with that. So if you can just talk to us a little bit about that programming.
Well, we are programmed, but we can change the programming.
Yes.
The thing is, you can't change the programming unless you honor what's happened to you. And forgiveness does not mean that what happened to you is okay. Forgiveness means you refuse to carry it anymore. And sometimes some things are terrible. Sometimes the way people treat people is really quite horrible. So the forgiveness is not in not saying, in saying, oh, whatever happened to me was okay. The forgiveness is acknowledging that it was somebody else's deficit, that they would treat you that way, but that you refuse to carry it anymore.
Now, having that experience, not carrying it anymore, finding the way out of it, then you become a wonderful teacher for other people that need to find that path as well, which is what you've been talking about, how you've been living as well.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. So,
And finding people like you that can help to guide out of those pathways or through those pathways. That's what this is all about. This is all about all of us connecting in ways where we can see that there's a clearer path, there's a clear way out of this.
yes, I always recall this passionist priest that I heard once, and he said, we're called to see the Christ in other people,
Yeah,
even when they can't see it in themselves. We're called to see the power of what they could be.
right. Yeah. Well, I used to have relationships like that where I could see the potential of the person, but then I was guided, it doesn't mean that I need to live with them.
That's
It's
right.
like I can see their potential, but it doesn't mean they're ever going to live their potential in a relationship. Now,
With you.
with me. And so it might be that there's a step of learning with us being together, but it doesn't mean that I need to stay in relationships like that.
Well, there's a wonderful page in the Al-Anon book. There's a book called One Day at a Time in Al-Anon for families of people that have problems with alcohol. And it says, don't carry somebody on your back and keep yelling at them that they can't walk.
Yeah.
So I think that speaks to that kind of a situation. I get to see the potential in you, and I'm going to be your biggest cheerleader,
Yes.
but I am not going to carry you.
Yeah.
And I've been doing this kind of work now for over 30 years. And people say to me, why is it that you don't get burned out? And it's because what I do is I open the door for people. People have to walk through their own doors. And they walk through it in a time that they choose, and they walk through it in the way that they choose.
So
That's very, very important. I don't have the answer for them. And so people are allowed to say no to me. And what I say might just spark another thought for people to do something else that's positive for them, but they don't need to do it my way. I don't know what's going to work for someone else because they have, we're kind of like, what are those? We are kaleidoscopes. In my family, we love kaleidoscopes where you look through them and you turn them and the glasses form different shapes and everything. And all of the experiences in our lives form those different shapes, those different shards of glasses. So if I have something to say that just goes into the mix. And then you have your own kaleidoscope and you take it with all the things that you think and the things that you need to move yourself forward.
Yeah, beautifully said. And so, yeah, it's like just really honoring everybody exactly where they're at and what works for them in this moment. But even drawing out for them what's possible so that they can change paths if they want to,
Or knowing where there's a door,
or knowing where there's a door.
you
Yeah.
know? There's a woman that I talked to, for many years now, on and off. And she ran into a social worker that knows about all the different ways that she could get money to support herself, all the different grants, all the different, what a wonderful thing.
Mhm.
I wouldn't know that. I don't have to have the whole answer, but it led her to be in a position where she could meet this person that knows all the numbers to call. Fabulous, fabulous. I'm just a part of a tree. I'm not the tree.
Right.
Yeah.
And I wanted to just bring in the topic of challenges. So when we're faced with challenges and being able to, well, sometimes I have felt like, wow, this is such a big challenge for me. I don't see how am I getting out of this? And sometimes I get so dark into it that I can't see any way out and that it might be like that forever. And then at some point I remember, wait a minute, everything changes, everything shifts, and this will change too. And so I don't need to take it so seriously in that moment. It's just accept it as it is and let it flow and let it change itself. Sometimes change itself and sometimes it needs me to do something. But
And
yeah.
yeah, that's the
Oh,
wonderful thing about horse equine therapy is when you get to a challenge, I always see that horse jumping over the fence,
yeah,
over the fence.
yeah. And I don't know if you want to add a little bit to that about when people are going through challenges and how to get doors open and be able to see the light that it is shifting and to allow it and not to take it so seriously. Is there something you want to add to that?
No, I think, as we get people calling in different kinds of situations, that will kind of take care of itself. I think, we just wanted today to let everybody know who we were
Yeah.
and what we were doing and why we're doing it.
Yeah, and how to authentically be in your own power. So that's really what we want to be able to share with people. And if we can open some doors for people to really be able to be in their authentic power.
Yeah. So we look forward to next week for you folks calling in and telling us about you. What has your path been like? What is your stumbling blocks? What is it? Where are you up to at the moment? And joining with us. And we look forward to really developing this network so that all of us can learn and grow from one another.
Exactly. Yeah, well said. And remember now it's called the Self-Alignment Channel. So this is on YouTube. And Ellyn, do you want to talk a little bit about, I think you're developing a website with that same name, correct?
We are developing a website with that same name, and that's a challenge for me because I have no idea on how to develop a website. I am technically challenged, but I got the website and there it sits, and we will figure out how to put it together. I also go to Costa Rica. Costa Rica is a lovely place. It's a very restorative, very healing kind of place. And although I live in the Poconos at the moment, I plan to be in Costa Rica on the 14th of August for a week. and maybe we'll sit down and look at it then. But if anybody wants to call in and help, we love help.
Yeah.
So let us know.
Yeah, and we will announce the call-in line as well. So it will be on WhatsApp. And so there will be a phone number that people can call. You'll have to download the WhatsApp app and make sure that you have that, and then all the calls will be free. And Ellyn, you sometimes offer private counseling, private sessions with people, and is that going to be an option?
I do indeed. I have always, my next dream, my next career is and I've been doing this now for a number of years along with everything else, is what I call psycho-spiritual counseling. Understanding that there's a mind and a body and a spirit and something larger, and that it's just all about taking down those defense mechanisms that we've built up. So I love to sit and talk to people. I don't think counseling's a forever thing. I believe in people's strength, and sometimes people just need to sit and talk so that they can hear themselves better. And together we can explore different options, different avenues. And I enjoy counseling.
And is there a contact that you want to talk about now for people that they could contact you for?
Sure, people can always contact me on my phone. It's a United States number, 570-764-4706. That's 570-764-4706. You know what? Do we have a chat?
I will put that in the notes. So
Okay,
and have that there as
here's a
well.
chat.
Yeah.
I can do. So if you're out of the United States, it's a +1, right? +1.
Yeah.
570-764-4706. I love to see people in person. That's my favorite, but it's not always easy today. And if you happen to be in Costa Rica, that would be just wonderful.
Yeah. So we have Ellyn in Costa Rica for a whole week. And if anybody is in Costa Rica or coming this way, that would be a wonderful opportunity to just be able to check in with her and have a session if you want.
And also, perhaps try out and see what equine counseling is about, equine therapy. It would be really, really good. That's always available in Costa Rica.
Yeah.
And why don't you give them a number, Laurie?
Yeah, the equine facilitated learning is what it's called because it really is about the horse facilitating the learning. And so, yeah, you could contact me. Well, I'll give you my number here, which is 506-8706-6074. And we usually try to do a series of sessions. So you could come for one session to try it out. And then if you wanted to do a series of sessions while you're in Costa Rica, we can arrange that as well. So yeah, we'd love to see everybody. And thank you so much, Ellyn, for the conversation today. And let's all move forward and see if we can get together and have some contact personally, or if we can get some people that would be interested in calling in next week, and we'll announce those numbers or that number for next week.
Good. Have a wonderful afternoon. The weather's beautiful here. How about you, Laurie?
Yes, absolutely gorgeous today.
It's great. We'll talk soon.
Thank you, Ellyn, and take care, everybody, and have a great week.